So welcome to Private SkewbSchool, and in this episode I'll be talking about how you can get into Sarah's Advanced. So what I mean with Sarah's Advanced is, with Sarah's Beginners, you basically always just try to solve the top layer. So in this case you will just do a hedge here to get this solved. And then with Sarah's Intermediate you try to preserve the top center. So here it would give you this. But then with Advanced you actually try to solve everything. So in this case that actually would mean that you look at that with PewDiePie everything stays the same. So you have a U-perm here. So you do hedge and like this. But that can seem daunting to get into because it seems like there are a lot of algs to learn, while it's actually just simply understanding how the cube works basically. So for a sledge or a hedge case, a lot of intermediate tutorials, when you have stuff like this, they teach you to get this on the top, but I want you to stop using that, because if you look at the optimal move count for each, if you look at the optimal move count for both options, doing a hedge or a sledge here actually would save you on sledges and hedges. So stop using that. So just do a hedge or a sledge in those cases, and then when you have this, you of course always do like a sledge here, put that on top. So what I will get into now is for the peanut cases. So that means when you have these cases, so you have one solved here and these ones here. So what I want you to understand is that for these cases, when you do a sledge on this side, on one of these two options, do a sledge here or do a sledge here, you end up in a pie case. While if you do a hedge here, you get another peanut case, or here you get another peanut case. And here is the same. So if you do here a hedge, you get a pie case. If you do here, you get a pie case. So then you just have to understand if a case is solvable in 2 sledges or more. But a more basic thing that you should learn from the start is that the easiest way to get into Advanced is to start early, and that's when you just basically follow these rules. So once you have an opposite here, the U center here, you can get it to the top in 2 different ways. You can do a sledge here and then a hedge here, like you are normally taught, and then it gets onto here. But you can also do this. You can also do a hedge here, and then you reduce it to a pie case, and then do another hedge here, and then you solve it, and again it will come to the top. So with a peanut case you always have 2 options. You can and you always have to start on one side of the thing. And then the other rule to follow is never do a sledge or a hedge on an opposite or a solved corner. So what I mean in this case, if you would want to do a hedge here and a hedge here, then you would end up with this case, but here you would end up with a solved case. But this is like an easy example. I will show you here, for example. Here you might be inclined with doing normal intermediate to do a sledge here and then a sledge here, but what ends up happening is you get a Z-perm. But if you follow the simple rule of never doing a sledge or a hedge on a solved center, and basically do a hedge here and then a sledge here, you get the U-perm, and you save on a lot of time. So that's an easy way to get into Advanced, because you will end up skipping a lot of bad cases. For example, also you will almost never end up with pure Swirl. So for the pie cases, like I said, for here just always do a sledge or a hedge into the case you get. You can get the Z-perm, but it's still fine. But what I mean is, for this case for example, I will get some more. So here what you would actually most people do is then do a sledge, but then you get a pearl swirl case, which isn't nice. So when you see that, you should rotate to a hedge. So in that case, it actually doesn't work. So there you're still kind of fucked. I didn't know that. I thought it was fine here. But here if you do a sledge or a hedge here, it doesn't matter. So here you still basically are fucked. But this is still better than the swirl case. Because you still get this. But what I wanted to show is more for these cases. So here again you have a soft center. If you do a sledge here, then you get a pearl swirl case. But if you do it here, you get L4C case. And for these cases, you should basically learn how to do them regardless. I have a SkewbSchool video showing them, but for this, it basically set it up to this case. So here it becomes basically like this, and that way it becomes a lot faster. So just it's like SkewbSchool episode 28 or 29. So just look that up. So if you can do those faster, then it's fine. And then so for pure swirls, what most people do, most people do like just the basic donut on the top, and then you get a Z perm, which isn't nice, but you can actually also solve it in 4 moves. So when you do it a sledge or a hedge on the side where this comes down, you get this case, and it can be solved in 3 sledges. So here basically it's, for this case the best is sledge, sledge, and then hedge, hedge. But you can cancel the sledges and hedges, so that's something also important to note is for this, when you want to do a sledge here and a sledge here, you can see that these 2 moves cancel. So what you can actually do is start the normal sledge, but instead of going down you go up and then insert like this, and then it becomes a lot faster. So anytime when you in your ALK you see like this case and you want to do a sledge sledge, just to sledge cancel. And the same can be said for doing hedge hedge, because that can be quite hard. But here again, instead of going up you can go down and then insert like this, which is also fast. So also learn that, and then the swirl cases will become a lot better. And then something else that I want to talk about then is, if you then want to move more towards being more move efficient and just learn advanced, then you just start learning for some cases how they work. So for example, so for this case here you would normally think like you can reduce it to a pi case in 2 moves in one sledge, and then to solve it in other sledges. But for this case it actually requires 3 sledges to solve. So then you have to think about so then you first have to reduce it to another peanut case. So here how you do it is you do it from the opposite side of the U center, and then here you want to do you want to get another peanut case, but if you do a sledge you will get pi case. So here you know that you have to do a hedge. So then you also still have to know where to do the hedge or the sledge. So that's something you also have to know for each case. So for these cases it's always doing it next to the soft center, and that's for all these cases. So here you basically do a hedge because you need another pi case, and then you can see you get an X case which can be solved in 2 sledges. So here it becomes like sledge hedge. So it's not really learning out, but it's just like understanding how the cube works. So for each of those cases, so with that simple rule you can also do it for this basically. Here is the same rule. So here you have this case. So again, if you set up to a normal case, then you just get something bad. So again, you need to reduce it to another peanut, and you have to do it next to the to the salt center that isn't the U center. So you have to do it here, but here you have to make sure that you get another peanut case, and if you do a hedge, you get a pie case. So here you do a sledge, and then again you get a pi plus x case, and then you just doing a sledge cancel here. So that's basically how it works. So then for each of those cases, you just have to try to figure out what the best optimal thing to do is, and that's the same for like these things as well. So for these cases, the same rule applies. Like you want to do it opposite to the case here. And now for here, it doesn't matter if you do a sledge or a hedge, because in this case both give peanut plus x case, sledge or a hedge. But then it actually kinda, if you want to do it optimal, then you should know whether to do a hedge or a sledge, and that depends on the case. But if you just want to keep it easy in the beginning, you can just, if you see a pi plus z conjugate, just always do a sledge and then go into the rest. But if you want to be more move optimal, then learn the optimal things to do. Is there something else? I think that should be most of the things, but for stuff like these cases, the 4 sledge cases are still bad, because here you basically have to do a, not even sledge. What is the Sledge advanced here? You're doing a hedge here? No. I don't even know what the best Sledge advanced case is, because it's just really bad. Okay. So in this case, it would just be keeping this in the back and then doing a sledge or a hedge basically here, and then you get this case. And here again, this can be solved in 2 sledges or 4 sledges, so you have to reduce it to another peanut case, and again you have to do it next to an opposite that isn't a salt center or the U center. So here you basically have to do a hedge. You have to do a sledge, sorry. Okay, I forgot how to do this way. Okay, I got it right. So you have to do a sledge here, but here you actually reduce it to this case. Okay, so wait, this case was actually different. So for this case, the optimal thing is actually to reduce it to a pi, because you have this case. So sorry, it has been a long time since I did Sarah's advanced. So for this case, I don't know if you know, but don't do a sledge here, because you get the H frame. But instead you should move to the other side, and then here, instead of doing a hedge, then you get the triple sledge case. Just do a sledge to force another pi case, and then you can rotate and do a hedge or a sledge. So for those cases, it basically always is reduced to this case. So then for this case, it's basically just here setting up into one of those cases basically. So that's something you have to know, and once you know how to solve these cases well, then for this you just have to learn. For these ones you just have to learn, like, oh, I have to do on the opposite side of the U center, I just have to do a sledge or a hedge, and then I get this case, and then I know that I have to set it up to this. And the more you practice, the more it actually starts flowing into each other, that you start recognizing which next step will follow. So in the beginning it's okay to just do like random stuff, but in the end you should try to focus on finding the best optimal solution for everything. But like, you get a lot of advantage from just start being more sledge optimal. And then, for example, for this case, it's also just, if you just want to, for peanut plus watt with one opposite, the Sarah's advanced is actually really easy if you don't really care about being that move optimal. that's speed optimal with Sledge optimal. The easiest way to do is just when you get one of these cases, always just do a U-perm starting from the center, and then you get a pi plus edge case. So it doesn't matter which case it is, basically, just always do a U-perm here, and then you get a pi plus edge case, which is really good. So just for all those sets, just learn what the best option is, basically.